Hello, this is Survival-gyver, and today's book of the week. I know I was missing last week. It's been a really long week. But this week, a book that I use a lot for reference. You can probably see the tabs that are all over it. Is the Gardening Complete, How to Best Grow Vegetables, Flowers, and Other Outdoor Plants. Authors of Cool Spring Press. This is a host of authors. So we got, let's see if I get this, Katie Elzer Peters, Rhonda Fleming Hayes, Charlie Nardozzi, Tara Nolan, Dr. Jacqueline A. Soul, Lynn Steiner, Jessica Walzener, and George Weigel, I believe. So this is a really good reference book. As I said, I use it quite often for my own garden in the back. So from vegetables to ornamentals to flowers and beyond, gardening is a big subject. They talk about building raised garden beds, improving soil, encouraging pollinators. Pollinators mean bees, or other bees are not the only thing that pollinate. Birds do as well, and so do things like fireflies. Not on purpose per se. They fly between flowers and other plants, and they cross-pollinate just by getting pollen on them. So this is a good book. It's be hard to explain everything that's in here, but this is a huge book on gardening. Let's see how many pages we've got in here. Over 300. About the authors, we got about 375 pages in here. So big book. So let's take a look inside here. This book was done in 2018 by Quattro Publishing Group. Okay, so contents, we got Botany for Gardeners, Understanding Soil, Designing Your Gardens, Planting a Garden, Watering Fertilizer, Pruning, Composting Mulch, Gardening by Seasons, Managing Weeds, Controlling Pests and Insects, which I've had to do a lot of looking on that since we were inundated with Japanese beetles this year, which is the first time I've ever had to deal with them. So, yeah, that's been wonderful. Decimated our roses and tried to eat all of our basil and some of our bush beans, but I got them all taken care of. Controlling diseases, another one that I probably have marked off for some of our tomatoes we've had problems in the past with, and we didn't make those same mistakes this year. How to propagate, harvesting edibles, gardening with native plants, water-wise gardening, gardening for the birds and the bees, container gardening, vertical gardening, raised beds, about the author index and image credits. You know, a lot of people say, well, that's not important. Well, without the authors and without the credits for the images, you wouldn't have a really good book by some really good people. And if you like pictures, there's lots of pictures. And beautiful pictures too. So there's all sorts of information here. They talk about botanical order, what some of those Latin and Greek names mean. So let's zoom in here for a moment. So let's see, Floribundian, pre-flowering. Fragrant or fragrant, you know. Contorus or Contorta, twisted. So hybridus, a mixed parentage, hybrid per se. So there's a lot of good stuff. The problem with plant nicknames is sorry, there we go. So you don't see my messy desk here. So there's a whole bunch of plants with the same names. You just gotta be careful. Like, what's the one I just recently learned of? Lemongrass and mosquito plant are the same thing. They're in the same genus. They're technically the same plant. One is edible, one is not. You should know. The mosquito plant is, I'm drawing a blank, and I have a whole bunch of them. It's the ingredient they use in mosquito repellent. Citronella. Citronella and lemongrass are the same thing. So same general plant genus. Not the same plant, but very close. One's edible, one's not. So there's all sorts of things in here. They talk about soil properties, texture, sandy soils, clay soils, loamy soils, ribbon test, getting a soil test. You know, this would take me hours to go through this entire book to show you all the good stuff that's in here. I highly recommend you check it out at your local library, or check Books A Million. There'll be a link in the description, and Amazon, there'll be a link in the description. If you're interested in buying them, they do have Kindle versions of it, but I don't find them as useful. Especially if you're really far away from Wi-Fi or anything else, you may have problems. Water and fertilizing, they talk about not watering the leaves. You want to water the base of the plant, because if any of the water comes up on the leaf, it could cause diseases. Strange, I know, weird. They show you where to do drip lines from the trunk, drip line, wetted areas, comparative wetting patterns for clay and loam and sand, watering must-haves, not absolutely necessary, but it helps. I do have some makeshift sprinkler systems here because we only have one hose bib, and it's in the back of the house, so there is one in the front I've added, but to get the hose all the way around the house to the sides that don't have any water outlets, it's a pain in the ass. So I used made a sprinkler with a hose, not soaker line, they'll talk about that in here too, but an actual sprinkler system, which is kind of cool, and it was cheap. So they talk about things like rain heads, elements required by certain plants, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, as well as manganese, zinc, boron, iron, and copper. When to cut the plants, tools to use for cutting plants. They recommend, removing crossovers through the center of the plant, so you can get some more light in there. Excuse me. Special cases for pruning, buying soil and mulch in bulk. What is this one? Yeah, so this is when I was getting into composting, using shredded grass clippings as a base mulch. Add some nitrogen in there, carbon. That was a good way to go things. Gardening by seasons. So some plants require certain seasons to grow. Like if you're growing onions, like we're growing onions for the first time this year, they're biennial, which means it takes 2 years to grow an onion. So yeah, that's wonderful. Didn't know that when I first planted them. How to choose hard-working plants. Winter, what plants do well with the winter. When to use mulch, how to add more power to your mulch with like newspaper. I actually use unprinted cardboard. I usually put, like I'm running, call them air prune bags. But every so often on, like, squirrels have been eating the bags, or my dogs, I'm not sure which. So I put a piece of unprinted or non-printed, no ink piece of cardboard between the soil and the outside of the bag to fill the holes in, but it'll also become mulch eventually anyway. Make sure there's no glue in it. They talk about different kinds of weeding, tarping, flame weeding, controlling pests. That's a big one for us lately. So pest management, they actually have a section that they recommend certain books. Garden Insects of North America Ultimate Guide, Good Bad Book, who they do and how to manage them. And they have websites. Whoop, can't see the websites. There they are. Bugguide.net, insectidentification.org, knowyouриnsects.org, and whatsthatbug.com. All right. So you got all these good websites. You could also check some of the groups on Facebook, like Baker's Creek has some really good people that are good at identifying pests. I'm on that, and a raised garden bed group, and they are great at helping me identify pests that I couldn't and didn't know how to appropriately fix. So we talk about all sorts of good things. How look, the lovely grubs. Now these are actually interesting because you'll see something just like this in the larva stage. The ones local to us this year, the ones of those little grubs that we did see, turned out to be Japanese beetle. If I knew what they were earlier, I would have crushed them all. I usually just leave them in the soil. I had aphids last year. Aphids annihilated some of our tomato plants, our cherry tomato plants, and Candyland tomatoes and green peppers, I believe, that we had. Annihilated them. The ants were eating all the aphids. We're pretty much farming them on the leaves. Yeah, that sucked. But we got neem oil, we got soap and water. We came up with a solution. My big problem now is keeping the dogs out of the vegetable gardens. So, here we go, controlling diseases. They have a 3-step disease prevention plan for resistance, control environmental conditions, and alter human actions. It's way up here. And then you talk about different kinds of diseases. Early blight, which we had on tomato plants, not great. Late blight, also for tomato plants. Yep, lovely stuff. Southern bacterial wilt, we had this early on. I believe it was a pepper plant. We had it on earlier. We had to get rid of it. Couldn't even put it in the mulch pile. I wasn't gonna take that chance. Talk about seed treatment and propagation, how to save seeds. All sorts of good stuff. Harvesting edibles. That's the reason why everybody plants. Everybody has gardens for edible harvesting. So how to, hey look, green beans. Those two. We had broccoli last year, which was actually the wrong season when we grew them. And you can't tell, but they were like huge. They were like softball size heads. So those actually are still in the fridge. I gotta toss them. We didn't eat them all. The plant grew really weird. It didn't grow like it was supposed to. Like the leaves, I don't know how to explain it. It didn't grow right at all. But the heads still grew fine. But the leaves were a mess. They talk about carrots in here as well. That's another staple that most people have. I've never been able to grow carrots bigger than like 2 inches. I have a lot of herbs in the backyard. We have a lot of lavender in the back because it keeps bugs away and it smells wonderful. You can always cut them, dry them, leave them hanging from the shower so you get that nice lavender smell when you take a shower. We have dill, we have cilantro, we don't have chives, we got a lot of basil. We have mint, we have oregano, parsley, we have like 4 different kinds of oreganos, like Italian oregano, German oregano, rosemary, sage, tarragon, thyme. The one we've had a really hard time finding this year was marjoram. We planted it last year and didn't come up at all. I bought brand new seeds this year. It took me a couple of weeks to find them. Couldn't find them anywhere. And those are just starting to sprout, so that's kind of cool. Acquiring native plants. Dealing with municipal laws and neighbors, because some people don't like what you grow. Like we have an HOA here. In the apartments here, they won't allow you to have edible plants on the outside of the property, but they can't tell when it's a pretty little flower, or it's a saffron crocus. They don't know that, but make saffron with it. So there's all sorts of things. We also have butterfly plants and hibiscus and things of that nature out on the side. How to remove excess seedlings, how to control plant height, how to reduce water use, which is really important during the summer. This year, I mean, if you're in Arizona, California, a lot of you guys have gotten a lot more rain than you're used to, and all your water goes pretty much to the ocean. It doesn't even go back into the Colorado River, where a lot of people are taking it from. But some kind of having water storage or reducing water usage, the proper soil and plants would be really good. Okay. Talk about maintenance, building a rain garden, which I haven't decided yet, I might do that on the side. Rain barrels, I have 2 rain barrels that I have not yet installed. We've gotten so much rain, like last night we got 4.5 inches of rain in 3 hours. That would have easily filled that up because the roof is more than 100 square feet. For every 100 square foot of roof space, 1 inch of rain equals 62.5 gallons of water. 62.5 gallons with 1 inch of rain. That would easily fill a 55-gallon drum up. That's a problem. The IBCs that we don't have any place to put them at the moment. And of course, I got to hide them from the HOA. Those are 265 gallons each. But there's all sorts of things you can do. Things like rain barrels, cisterns. Then you talk about pollinators, things that you can, spring blooming, bee-friendly perennials. How to deal with bees directly for like nesting materials in nature. What to do about weeds. Some weeds are not really weeds, but people don't like them, which is really strange. There are some really beautiful weeds that are crazy pollinators. They're great for birds and bees and insects, and yet friendly insects, ones that are good for your garden, but people don't like to plant them because it's a weed. Doesn't make any sense to me. So they talk about thriller, filler, and spiller, shrubs and trees like lemon tree. I do want to grow one in the backyard, lemon and lime. I haven't decided how or where, since most of our backyard is pine trees. Containers, pest control. There's some more pest control in here. Vertical gardens, beautiful arbor. I like that. Things that climb. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Espalier. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one, so my apologies. Vertical gardening, raised garden beds, which is a big one for us because we do have some in the backyard. Ours are plastic with weed block on the bottom because the soil underneath is hard clay. It's dark red hard clay. It makes really good concrete. It does not make good soil. So we have some weed block on the bottom. We have these forms on the side, something like this, but in plastic. And it does a really good job. And because the bottom is not solid to the ground, if I, for some reason, overwater it or leave the sprinkler on too long or something of that nature, it'll just leak out of the bottom. So it's not the end of the world. And something like this, plastic. I'm thinking about actually doing something like this on the side of the house when I extend the side. But not yet, it's way too hot outside. And then there's a whole bunch of information about the authors. Kind of looks like a cousin. Yeah, it looks like one of my old bosses too. So there's good information on there. They also have some books by the authors. More index. More index, and then there's photo credits at the end. So that is the gigantic garden complete. How to best grow vegetables, flowers, and other outdoor plants. Really good reference book to have on hand, especially if you have a garden. Take a look at your local library. I actually think I may have gotten this from BJ's a few years ago. They typically are around like $30. At least when I bought this, it was about $30. BJ's or Costco, one of those two. But take a look. I'll leave a link in the description for Books A Million and for Amazon. And of course, check your local library. So thank you for watching and have a glorious day.